Hey, what's up, everybody? Your favorite friends here on the Flagship Podcast, Chip Brown and Eric Henry of Horns247.com, coming to you live from Hotlanta, site of the SEC Football Media Days. That's right. We are coming to give you our thoughts on what we experienced, certainly when Texas took the stage on Tuesday, but also Georgia. And what on earth was going on with the commitments yesterday? Because if you pay close attention, five-star linebacker Tyler Atkinson from the state of Georgia, a guy being recruited by Georgia, and James Johnson from Miami, who was committed to Georgia, both committed to Texas on the same day that Texas was on the stage with Georgia at SEC Media Days. Eric, that was just coincidence, right?
Yeah, if you believe in coincidences, I certainly don't. What is going on? Loyal Flagship Podcast listeners, viewers, all of the kind. We are here, as Chip Brown said, in Hotlanta, Atlanta, Georgia, a place that has become a second home for all of us and the Longhorns. Of course, Texas was in Atlanta for the Peach Bowl, in Atlanta for the SEC title game, wanted to be in Atlanta
for the
national championship game. But we are back here in Hotlanta SEC Media Days, day 3 of SEC Media Days. And luckily, there is no intro music to this pod, because if there were, and the SEC were in control of it, who knows, Chip, what intro music we might have been walking to the stage with, sir.
So Steve Sarkisian gets introduced and they start playing the Aggie War Hymn, Texas A&M's fight song. And then Greg Sankey apologized today. Go check out Eric Henry's Twitter. You want to hear that apology from Greg Sankey. What is your, Eric C. Henry _?
My Twitter handle is, as for those of you who are watching, it's the same that you see there, at Eric C.
See, look at that. We have fun with each other here. There it is, right on the screen.
I wasn't even giving Chip a hard time. I just was letting the folks know that's what the handle
is. _. Of course, I got caught. I was looking at his Twitter feed instead of the screen. But yeah, so Steve Sarkisian walks to the podium to the Aggie War Hymn. I got 2 things on this.
Yeah.
One, he doesn't flinch. If he had made a grimace or like a what the hell's going on, he would have become a viral GIF. He acts like nothing's going on. Some people would say he doesn't know the Aggie War Hymn. He's only been in the same conference with A&M for a year. But number 2, he, do we now, should Mike Elko walk out on Thursday to Texas fight? I mean, what's going on here, E. Henry?
This is what I'll say, Chip.
What did you think of Sankey's apology?
I mean, at least he acknowledged it. He didn't have to, so I'll give him that. It's about as best as he can do, right? I mean, in terms of Steve, listen, right? I'm not going to lie. It would have been funny if I believe Steve Sarkisian heard it, which I don't believe he heard it. If you know Steve, he's kind of locked in, ready to deliver his message. I don't think he even really caught it. And yeah, that probably has something to do with the fact that he has not heard that song. I've heard that song more than he has, because I've covered games at A&M for football, basketball, and baseball. So I've heard that song more than he has, right? But it would have been funny if Steve had said, hey, that's my bad, I didn't recognize it, didn't hear it a ton, right? He could have done that. But no, I thought it was more of just a bad look by the SEC. And I don't think it was intentional, but come on. A&M,
right.
Chip, what we hypothesized, and I don't remember if you were there at the stage this morning when we were hypothesizing this, but what if Kalen DeBoer strode to the Strode to the Stage to the Auburn fight song, right? Like that'd have been
Would he
something.
recognize it? Yeah.
That's a good question, though. It's a good question if he would have. ML having only been there 1 year, it's a good question, right? But that would have been something. So I'm not trying to make a mountain out of a molehill, but at the same point in time, had this been Auburn, Alabama, or insert rivalry, like people were going to have feelings. So I don't blame the Texas fans who had feelings for having feelings.
Yeah. It's everyone already thinks the SEC is like Texas, get over yourself. And they think that half the SEC is like somehow upset that Texas is now a part of the SEC. Those are not clear-minded thinking people, by the way. You want as many valuable assets in your conference as possible because that's more rev share for you as a member institution. But nonetheless, Eric, let's get to it. The Texas Longhorns are definitely a team seen as one of maybe 4 teams that could actually win the SEC this year. I think most people would probably say Texas, Georgia, Alabama, and then pick a 4th. Some would say LSU, some would say Florida, some would say, wild card. So nonetheless, Steve Sarkisian, Arch Manning, Anthony Hill, Michael Taft rolled into Atlanta, and I thought it was a knockout performance. I want to start off with Michael Taft because you noted it and got a picture of Michael Taft's tie that had the initials of the girls who died at Camp Mystic, the campers, the counselors, the camp director. And Michael Taft is a special human being. His story is unbelievable. Walk on to now second team All-American. And we'll get into some of the things that have, empowered him along the way. But he knew he was coming to a big stage with a lot of media, and he wanted to shine light on those who as he said, died as heroes. They were trying to save their own lives. They got ambushed by, middle of the night floodwaters. Everybody knows the story, but he wanted to make sure the rest of the country knew the story. We in Texas know it, the rest. And so I think he's a special human being. He's a wonderful football story, but he's a special human being.
Yeah, Chip, I'll piggyback off that. And for those of you watching, you may see me go off camera for a minute because an unnamed airline did lose some of my luggage in transportation. So it is getting to me on the final day of my trip, another piece of my luggage. So if you see me disappear off camera, that will be why. But I want to make this point really quick before I do pass it back to Chip. Chip, I debated on even acknowledging this, to be honest. There was someone who purports themselves to be a Texas A&M fan. And I say purports because this is the internet. You never know who is on Twitter, right? But when I tweeted out the video, someone said, typical TU nonsense. They use a different word, making the incident, the tragedy, I should say, not the incident, the tragedy about themselves. That's nonsense. And I don't even know, Chip, if I should even justify that tweet with a serious response, but I'm gonna do so. I can understand for someone who may not be familiar with Michael Taft and may think he sounds, hollow or contrived or like staged or whatever you want to assign, right? I can understand if you aren't around him, it could come off that way. But Michael Taft is legit. Michael Taft is genuine. He is all of those things, right? And to try and to, I don't know, insert silly college rivalries into something that's real life, I just thought that was ridiculous, right? So there's that part. So for anyone who may feel that way, I maybe, Chip, I am lowering myself by even acknowledging that. But for anyone who sees that and doesn't think that that's not legit, 100% genuine Michael Taft, I'm here to tell you it is. So there's that.
And it was the A&M game where someone held up a sign talking about Sam Ehlinger's brother,
Chip, was
Jake.
it A&M or Arkansas? I genuinely don't remember.
I think it was A&M.
You may be
So
right. You may be
let's
right.
be better. Let's be
Let's
better.
overall let's be
Let's
better.
be better. Let's see the the positivity and the possibility,
Yeah.
as opposed to always looking for the heat miser, cold miser under the bed aspect of a story. All right, Eric, is your luggage here?
Yeah, it's getting ready to get here. So I'll step off camera for a second. I'll just quickly say, Chris Bennett, thank you, the world's greatest unpaid intern, since it was A&M. Yeah, at that point, the games all run together at a certain point. So it was that. But yeah, I'm going to disappear for a second. I will leave Chip to have the Chip Brown show for about 3 minutes, and I'll grab my luggage and be back.
All right, and this is just so sad that Eric, he comes to Atlanta for a few days, and his luggage, as he's getting ready to leave, uh, is just now arriving. But that's the way it goes. Okay, back to Texas at SEC Media Days, and we'll keep this episode brief. But to recap, I thought Sarkisian is just so good in these public settings. He strings the narrative well together. He said it's the most talented and deepest defense he's had. He's going into his 5th year. That's saying a lot. Obviously, if you're looking at question marks that you wanted to try and answer at SEC Media Days, you probably look at the interior of the defensive line, and the communication in the secondary if you're talking about the defense. And I think you look at, I talked to Anthony Hill about the 5 defensive tackle transfers, and I got the vibe that he feels really good about Cole Brevard and Travis Shaw and Murad Watson and Alex January. And that's 4. And that's what you need. You'll play your other, a Hero Canoe. You'll be playing a Levon Johnson. You'll be playing those guys in games 2, 3, 4 against San Jose State, UTEP, and Sam Houston. And then the guys who show that they can hold up will be a part of the rotation going to Florida. So I think there's reason for promise there. Anthony Hill raved about Brad Spence, the Arkansas linebacker transfer, says he can do everything that Anthony Hill can do, which means play both the Mike and Will linebacker positions and rush the passer, and is good in dropping into coverage. Anthony Hill raved about Ty Anthony Smith. Obviously, he loves Leon Lafau. So I've said Texas has the best linebacker room in the country. I feel even more strongly about that now. And then in the secondary, as far as the communication, Michael Taft and Eric wrote about this, so I don't want to, we'll let him weigh in on this too, obviously. But I asked Michael Taft, well, can the communication be as good as it was last year when you had your high school buddies, Andrew Makuba and Jade Barron, on the team, and you guys seem to be able to read each other's minds? And Michael Taft said, go watch the Michigan game when I'm on the field with Derek Williams, and how well we communicated with all the motions and shifts and over-unders that Michigan was running. He said, you'd have thought we were playing together for 10 years. So I think Michael Taft, anyway, feels like the communication in the secondary is going to be strong. You've got Michael Taft, Derek Williams, Jelani McDonald, the safety position. And then at corner, I wanted some intel on who's pushing, Malik Muhammad, who's pushing Jalen Gilbo. And it's a lot because Michael Taft's player to watch is Kobe Black. And Anthony Hill raved about Kobe Black. So I think you can put him on that list. Eric, you got your luggage as you're getting ready to leave, right?
Chipper, tee me up. Well, you can finish your thought and then tee me up, and I'll jump in. Appreciate it.
Okay. So I was just recapping the defense, and I said if I'm, Steve Sarkisian said it's the best talent and depth he's had, and so I talked about what Anthony Hill said of the defensive tackles, about the linebacker position, and then in the secondary, Michael Taft said his player to surprise is Kobe Black, but he also had great things to say. Really, I mean, he talked about Santana Wilson as a guy who, like when the ball's in the air, he thinks it's his, but will also take on an offensive guard who's pulling, physical player, Jordan Johnson Rubel at the safety position, Jonah Williams, both Taft and Anthony Hill raved about, because Williams is a guy who just has a presence, and Michael Taft was like, "Hey man, you're just getting into this. He's like, why don't you play deep middle? I'll take the rest." And he said, "No, I need to learn how to play both sides. I got to get in there," and that impressed Michael Taft. And Anthony Hill mentioned Zealous Hicks, nearly 6'3" safety, who he said is really grasping the defense and playing fast. I mean, it's ridiculous. Warren Roberson, the list goes on. That is one of the positions in training camp, Eric, I think that it's going to be fascinating to watch. And also in games 2, 3, and 4, when you're going to play your depth, all those guys should be playing if they're playing at a level that Michael Taft and Anthony Hill were saying here.
Yeah, listen, I know you ran through a lot, each level there with the defense. I'm going to go to the secondary. I'm going to take an angle that I wrote a piece on. Forgive me if Chip mentioned it, but I'm going to mention it myself. I wrote this piece yesterday talking about the communication of the secondary. Chip, how often did we hear in the 2023 season, it felt like at a certain point it was Groundhog Day. Texas defense would play outstanding, but then towards the end of games, whether it was because teams were playing from behind and having to throw, or some teams, somehow managed to have some success, just choosing to abandon the run, not want to run on Tavondre Sweat and Byron Murphy, and would throw the ball, and we'd hear, we just got to communicate better. Either we got to communicate better or we got to tackle better, right? 2024, what happens? Michael Taft continues his ascension as a safety. Jahdae Barron makes the move outside the corner, and Andrew Makuba transfers to Texas. So you now have 3 childhood friends, guys who trained together in the offseason. Chip, how many times, loyal listeners, have you heard Chip Brown talk about where relationships are built, forged in the offseason, right? Those guys didn't just have, 2-3 years of offseason together playing in college. This goes back to their high school years, right? So the natural cohesion, the natural, I can just look at you and know what you're thinking and vice versa, they have that. Now that's gone with Jahdae Barron off to the NFL. Congrats, Jahdae, just signing his contract today, making that official, and Andrew Makuba in Philadelphia, right? How do you recreate that? Steve Sarkisian, when I asked him that question, said we had to muzzle Taft, right? Because Michael Taft, even from the time I got on the beat, you would hear his voice being a leader, being a communicator, pointing out things, right? So you fast forward 3 years, you can imagine where he is now as the vocal leader, the undisputed captain of the secondary. But they can't just have one guy communicate. Steve Sarkisian noted it's a two-way street. People have to, have to be able to communicate. You have to be able to understand what the other person is communicating, and everyone has to be on the same page. It was Chip Brown who asked this question of Jahdae Barron in 2023, talking about, hey, when Texas was playing, we're playing at that time a lot of defensive backs, specifically safeties. And when Jahdae was playing star, Chip asked him, hey, do you ever have to make sure, like, all right, I know I communicated that to Jaron Thompson, but Jalen Catalon or Keaton Crawford or so on and so forth. And Jahdae said, man, that's a good point. I probably need to make sure that I've communicated it because I've said it to one, but I need to make sure everyone is hearing it, right? It's the same thing here. So the decision to say, hey, Michael, we know you know what you're doing out there. We need Jelani McDonald to find his voice. We need Jordan Johnson Rubel to find his voice. Kobe Black, Manny Muhammad, etc. Those guys to find Derek Williams to find their voice, right? That was encouraging to me. That speaks volumes to me, that they're allowing the other players to find their voice, to learn how to communicate, so that when the bullets are live, when the proverbial bullets are live, August 30th at Ohio State, everyone knows how to communicate. So that was important to me. I'll quickly run through the other levels of the defense because Chip spoke about the defense. Listen, this linebacker room, right? Trey Moore officially making the move to linebacker. Everyone, there wasn't any hiding of it that Trey Moore has been playing at linebacker. I'm intrigued to see what that'll look like, Chip. Maybe it's because, I spent 2 years covering Trey Moore at the group of 5 level with UTSA. I just know him as a pass rusher. I don't listen. We don't see them in practice, so you take it with a grain of salt. We'll see come fall camp. I just have never, Chip, seen Trey Moore be a full-time stand-up linebacker. I certainly know that he can rush off the edge. He can be a linebacker who rushes the quarterback, but there are more things to being a linebacker in that sense, right? You got to play in space. You got to, will Trey Moore be targeted in coverage? Chip, Anthony Hill is an outstanding linebacker, but you probably would say if you had to find a quote-unquote weakness, it would be him in coverage, right? So the times that you're either in a 3 linebacker look, or do you even possibly go 2 linebackers where you have Moore and Hill? Is that something to be concerned about? I'm not trying to speak things into fruition, just things I think you have to be concerned about with this move that you keep an eye on, and there'll be storylines during fall camp. And to go to the front end, listen, Anthony Hill had nothing but great things to say about the defensive tackles. Cole Brevard, Travis Shaw, Alex January, all of the transfer additions. So we'll see how those things, those players fit in their roles, The thing that I am wondering is how can they fill starter level snaps? I wrote about this earlier in the week, right? There hasn't been, of all the the defensive tackles who were added by Texas, none of them have played north of 450 snaps. If you look at defensive tackles over the last 2 years, Alfred Collins, Vernon Broughton, Tavondre Sweat, Byron Murphy, an extended season, you're going to play north of 450 snaps. So can those guys do it with starter level snaps in a season that could be 13, 14, 15, 16 games, right? That is certainly something to keep an eye on as well. But I'm going to come back. I'm going to throw up David Keith Williams' comments here. I'll quickly run through this one. It says, as much as Longhorn Nation loves and respects Leon Lafau, he views the 2 best linebackers as Anthony Hill and Brad Spence. That certainly is something to keep an eye on as well. And then I will throw up this comment to segue into my final point before I pass it back to Chip. Chip, thank you for covering for me there for a few minutes. David Keith Williams thinks that Texas will benefit immensely if Kobe Black is the starter at corner opposite of Manny Muhammad, as opposed to a Jalen Gilbo, certainly someone who was in the running. This story, Chip, again, I think get it all out here. This story spoke volumes to me in terms of the culture aspect, right? We've talked about that ad nauseum since 2023. I asked Michael Taff about needing to let other guys communicate. And he didn't necessarily talk about the communication per se, but he did give an anecdote about off-field communication, saying he's trying to talk to some of the young freshmen, and maybe he wasn't teaching in a way that they understood it, right? Because Michael Taff has a PhD level understanding of this defense, and these young puppies are coming in with a high school level understanding of the defense, and maybe he was talking over their head, or maybe he just wasn't explaining it in a way that they understood. These are Michael Taff's words, and the guys were kind of confused. And Kobe Black just said, "All right, listen, whatever Michael Taff says to do, just do it, even if it doesn't make sense. Michael Taff says to do it. Jade Barron's coming back here saying to do it. Just do it. If it doesn't make sense, we'll figure that out afterwards. But I promise you, that's the way to go." Right? That speaks volumes to me, Chip, because that means the guys are getting it, right? The young guys are saying just do what they do, right? If it might not make sense to you right now, but in 2 years, the light bulb will go off. Oh, I get it, right? So those were some of the takeaways for me from the defense, Chip.
Yeah, and it is fun to hear Michael Taff say that, because Michael Taff still gets a little bit when a high 4-star like Kobe Black is telling the former walk-on, or saying the former walk-on is the guy to listen to, right. He's still, it's not imposter syndrome, Eric, because he's constantly reminding himself of the things that people like Bijan Robinson have told him, and Roshan Johnson, who both told him when he was younger, you're a player. You need to keep talking. You need to keep leading. And Michael Taff's like, I'm a walk-on. And they're like, no, the way you work, you've earned it. Keep talking, keep leading. And Bijan told him, when he said, I think you're going to win the Doak, Bijan said, well, you should win the Thorpe. This was 3 years ago. And Michael Taft was like, I'm a walk-on. He's like, you're a player, dude. Like, you know what you're doing. You need to make the Thorpe a goal. And it's just cool to see. Life is about confidence. Life is about confidence. And watching Michael Taft build his confidence has been one of the great stories in Texas football the last couple of years. All right, Eric, kudos to us, or shame on us. 25 minutes in, we haven't mentioned Arch Manning. We have mentioned Michael Taft and Anthony Hill. Arch Manning, I thought he was, his grandfather Archie said, keep your answers brief and stick and move. And I thought he did a really nice job. He had some funny stories about how when he was a freshman, he wasn't playing. He would go in for a film session with Paul Christ, and it would turn into an hour of film watching and an hour of venting by Arch. And then he said, don't tell anyone, but I went out and played pickup basketball with my roommate just to get the feel of competition again. I thought he was really charming. Your thoughts?
That's the most accurate word to describe Arch Manning. It's fascinating, Chip. We had a chance to speak with Arch for a little bit before, the entire SEC media days contingent got him. It felt like the entire contingent. I tweeted out a picture that showed all the people swarming him down bottom. And then there was a little overhanging where some of the television folks had their cameras up there, and they were there for Arch Manning.
Aerial view.
The thing that it shouldn't stun me because of his familial background, but none of this phases him, right? The attention, like he just seems so comfortable in his own skin, so comfortable with the attention, right? And maybe, and this is no slight on Quinn Ewers, I don't mean it in this way, but it's the only thing I have for comparison's sake. Maybe it's so, jarring, maybe it's so illuminating because Quinn Ewers, it was very clear that Quinn had to work into finding his comfort level with scrums and that amount of people around him. So to see Arch just kind of be up there and be like, yep, I got it. To give Longhorn fans something tangible from that should encourage you, because any thought or idea that, man, this attention is going to be too much and it's just going to make a recently 21-year-old kid crack, out the window. Like, Arch can handle it. So that is encouraging. That was a big takeaway. And yeah, to what you said, I think more than anything else, what I took away from the time we had with Arch Manning is that, and I wish I'd had a chance to ask him this. There were so many things I want to ask. I wish I had a chance to ask him this. I wonder, in hindsight being 2020, maybe this is a better question to ask him when he gets through an entire year on the field, Chip, because he's still chomping at the bit. I wonder if in an honest moment he would say, yeah, I'm glad I had those 2 years, right? To just be a guy, to just be Quinn's understudy. Because in my mind, Chip, that can't do anything but help him. He's had time to get the mental reps. He's had time, of course, with Quinn's injury, he had some time on the field, but he's had time to, none of this is new, how a game week works, how prep works, how travel works. None of this is new. So he just gets to go out there and play football. And I think the biggest beneficiary of that would be Texas.
Yeah, well, Steve Sarkisian certainly thinks those 2 years have been totally beneficial, as opposed to getting thrown in as a true freshman the way most people would think, where you can create some bad habits. You're making decisions under duress, and habits get formed under duress. So we'll see. But Arch was all about ball. He said at one point, at first, I didn't want to come to SEC Media Days because cameras are not my favorite thing. And Michael Taft joked that he's his cameraman, that whenever they go to Chipotle, they're all like, hey, will you take our picture? And so someone asked him, do you give Arch a hard time? He's like, do I give Arch a hard time? I'm his cameraman. Hell yes, I'd give him a hard time. I'm the one who's always got to take the pictures with the fans wherever we are. But yeah, I think Arch, he said, repeatedly, he's asked about OU, he's asked about going to Ohio State, about going to Georgia, and he paid proper respect and said, those games are going to be fun. That was his word, and he said we're excited to go to Georgia, and he's a confident guy. I thought some of the things as we talk about the offense, since we kind of covered all the defense. If you're looking at questions, people want to know about the offensive line. They want to know about the newcomers, Jack Endries, Emmett Mosley the fifth. Everybody raved about Jack Endries. I mean, Anthony Hill's like, I purposely went to line up against him because I wanted to see what he was all about. He's like, this dude is the real deal. Arch said he thinks he's going to be an impact guy. He said he's been here, a few weeks. He's already a leader on the team because he's learned the offense. He's in the weight room when he doesn't even need to be in the weight room. He's doing the little things. He's doing the stuff that qualifies him to be a leader. And Emmett Mosley the fifth, Arch said this guy knows what he's doing, and so he caught 48 passes last year at Stanford as a true freshman and 6 touchdowns. I think you can feel good about those two if you're wondering, because the team certainly believes in those two.
Listen, for me, and I'll come to the offensive line in a second, I don't think we can underscore those comments by Arch because it shows that the new guys are picking things up. I don't want to throw anyone under the bus, right? But Chip, when you would ask guys, or I don't mean that's a metaphorical you, because I really talk about myself here, to be clear. When I would ask guys about Amari Nyblack, you'd hear about the athleticism, but you didn't necessarily hear the way Chip just described them talking about Jack Endries. And that's no shade on Amari, right? Listen, there's a lot of things that go into being a tight end in Steve Sarkisian's offense. It's not for everybody, right? Amari probably go to A&M and flourish, and his athletic skills, the same way he was used at Bama, probably come out there and wish him the best, right? But you didn't hear him talked about that way, the way you hear about Jack Endries being talked about. You hear Emmett Mosley being talked about, and like he gets it, right? Those things I think you can't emphasize enough because they're coming in, they're not only picking up the playbook, they're assimilating to the culture. And in essence, you don't get this like, well, here's a transfer guy who's a little bit behind, but he's just trying to, hold on for dear life, right? No, they're bringing everyone along. Everyone's on the same page. That to me matters. To go to the offensive line, I asked Arch about Cole Hudson and DJ Campbell specifically, and yes, Arch should keep his answer short, as his grandfather told him. But the reason I asked about those guys specifically is those are the vets, right? DJ Campbell Sr., Cole Hudson Sr. Those are the guys that I'm looking towards, Chip, that if all else goes to, bleep, those are the two guys who should, in my mind, be able to stabilize things and say, hey, we were here with Kelvin Banks, Hayden Connor, Jake Majors, etc. Let's pave the way, right? Because for some of these guys, they're going to be first-time starters. Cole Hudson has a year of starting experience to lean on. And also, kudos to Cole in this college football environment for not transferring, right? Because that's, okay, you tell me I start as a true freshman and in the next 2 years I'm going to be a reserve. No, most kids in today's day and age hit the portal. But to finish that point, he has a year of starting experience. DJ Campbell has multiple years of starting experience. Those are the guys I think, Chip, and I'll pass it back to you on this, that if, for whatever reason, things get shaky out there at Ohio State, at Georgia, at Florida, those need to be the two offensive linemen who are settling everybody down.
For sure. And the offensive line, even Arch, he said, I'm taking those guys to dinner. We went to dinner the other night. They eat a lot. It's a lot of fun. He said, I'm excited to see how they work. So he knows that there's a good bond between the group. But look, Matt Patricia's the new defensive coordinator at Ohio State. He could drop a whole stuff he's never shown before. That's the scary thing about the season opener. You play someone in week 4, you have a pretty good idea what they're going to be majoring in. You play them in week 1, you got no idea. This offensive line is going to see things they haven't prepared for. And you're right, Eric. Those are going to be the voices that need to say, okay, we've seen this. Me and DJ have seen this before.
Right.
Here's how we're going to adjust to this stunt or this, I don't want to say
front?
stem.
Yeah,
Joker front. Yeah,
remember that?
That gave him plenty of issues.
Right.
So, yeah, and I think that's gonna evolve. That's not something you can, you have said, and I agree. It's a question mark until we see it. So just because of the cohesion, the chemistry, the communication that's needed at that position that is unique to any other position on the field, because 5 guys have to work together within the team. At the running back position, Eric, Steve Sarkisian continues to say we can afford to go slow with CJ Baxter. He said there are really good days, and then there are days where he gets a little frustrated that maybe he's not exactly where he wants to be. And nothing but love for Trey Wisner. And there is some excitement about Christian Clark. Tashard Choice compared him to me at the Sugar Bowl 2 years ago to Bijan. He's a bounce guy, a jump cut guy, a spin move guy. And, of course, he's coming off the Achilles, but it's amazing how people get over Achilles injuries. And so I think there's excitement there. And obviously, if you have those 3 and Jarek Gibson, Steve Sarkisian went out of his way to say, I'm excited about Jarek Gibson because he is a downhill runner. He gives them a little something different. He runs even different from Quintravian Wisner. So you've got kind of a lot of guys who are good at different things, which is good. That means the defense is going to have to defend each guy a little bit differently. But it sounds to me like Steve Sarkisian feels like this running game is going to be good. And we know that's the best friend of a young quarterback.
Yeah, I won't belabor the point too much. You still got plenty we want to get to. I'm going to focus on Trey Wisner because that's the guy, Quintravian Wisner, Chip, who I think we get so caught up in some of the younger guys, Jarek Gibson, Christian Clark, even CJ Baxter, right, come back from injury. Chip, and I'm going to pause because this isn't a rhetorical question. Do we think we have a good feel on what Quintravian Wisner's ceiling is? Just because he was the guy who, last year was the 3rd string running back and then, of course, got pressed into duty with Jane Blue's fumbling issues and CJ Baxter's injury. It feels like we almost don't know what Trey's ceiling is. Fair?
Yeah. I mean, and the fact that he caught 44 passes, that's not a small feat. Bijan Robinson never caught 44 passes in a season. This kid does whatever you ask him to do.
So that's the thing to me. All of the other guys, you're kind of waiting and seeing in terms of how are they going to develop? How is CJ going to recover from injury? How is Christian Clark going to recover from injury? Quintravian Wisner, the quote that sticks with me coming out of spring was him saying, listen, I didn't feel comfortable making guys miss in the open field. I just wanted to, stick my foot in the ground, get upfield, hang on to the ball, right, which was an issue, and get the yardage. Who knows what Quintravian Wisner's ceiling is? And I'll never forget Tashard Choice raving about him when I spoke with him. This was Sugar Bowl 2024. So before Trey was even, a guy.
That's the only time we ever get to talk to those assistants.
Exactly, right?
Major bowl games.
So I am really intrigued by it. Texas Boy has a comment here where he says you have to be concerned with Trey's weight loss. Do we? Because, Trey played at 205, 206, 207 last year. I do remember at the latest roster update, as I have it pulled up here right
194.
now. 194.
But here's the thing, Eric.
Go for it.
At DeSoto, he was a spin move guy.
Right.
He so you're right. There's some stuff we haven't seen from Quintravian Wisner, who obviously was trying to feel his way last year, getting thrown into being the majority ball carrier. But yeah, 194. Jamal Charles never played heavier than 194. Jamal Charles was the ultimate mover and spin move and cut in space guy. But still, I always thought Jamal Charles was going to get broken in half, and he never did.
And Chip, let's not forget this, because this is another reason why, to Texas Boy's comment, I'm not concerned about the weight loss. You ain't got to question his physicality. You're talking about a guy who earned his stripes on special teams, laying wood on people, right? So you don't have to question his physicality in my mind. So if you can couple that, his natural running instincts, with his confidence and maybe improved confidence and ability to make guys miss in the open field, that's what I'm looking at the running back position.
Yeah. All right. We got to cut this a little bit short. But Texas baseball, they did have, a bunch of players committed to the program who were selected in the draft, and you can pretty much bank on all of them signing pro contracts. The current players, Max Ballou, Jared Spencer, Jalen Flores, Rylan Galvan, Grayson Saunier were all drafted. And then of the high school and transfer commitments, Gavin Fine, we knew, the third baseman, first-round pick, and Kason Cunningham, second baseman, first-round pick of the Arizona Diamondbacks. Gavin Fine to the Rangers. It's exciting. But then transfer commitment, Jack Marachnik was drafted in the 11th round by the Nationals, and left-handed pitcher Luke Dotson, who probably would have been a contender to be a starter, was drafted by Arizona in the 11th round. And Xavier Mitchell, left-handed pitcher out of high school, was drafted in the 13th round by the Angels. And I'm told that all of those players are likely to sign pro contracts. So there's good news and bad news there. You got Sam Cozart, I believe. I think he's they left him alone. And he's a guy they're real excited about. And Jim Schlossnagle will develop guys. There's no doubt about that. And they did pick up Carson Tinney, the All-American catcher and Buster Posey finalist, to replace Rylan Galvan. They have Justin Livingston from Wichita State as a first baseman to replace Kimball Schusler. And they picked up Timo Becerra from Stanford to play shortstop, with Jalen Flores likely moving on. So don't panic, Texas baseball fans. This, I think they were wondering if Luke Dotson would get drafted. He did. That was tough. But the other ones you probably expect, and maybe Grayson Saunier as well. But Texas has a lot of pitching, and I think they'll be fine. All right, Eric, I don't know if you want to add on to that or move on to.
I know you got to drive, so drive the show, and you'll get us there. Take it or leave it.
All right, let's get to take it or leave it, because I'm supposed to be meeting with a source here soon. Are you serving first or am I?
I will serve first, so we can jump right into it. Take it or leave it. Number one, you feel better about Texas' chances of winning the SEC in 2025 after attending SEC Media Days. Take it or leave it, Chip.
Chances of winning the SEC, I'm going to leave this. To me, Georgia is the champ. They're the favorite. They get Texas in Athens. Texas was non-competitive in the first game. Well, that's not true. They battled back, made it an 8-point game in the third quarter, and then they were non-competitive. And then they lost in the SEC championship game in Atlanta. We know if Texas is going to be the SEC champ, they're going to have to play Georgia twice in the state of Georgia. Now, I may change my mind, but for right now, Georgia is the team to beat. I do think Texas should be in the SEC championship game, and I feel better about that. But winning the SEC, not yet, Eric. I'm going to leave this. What say you?
I will make it quick. I am leaving it. There was nothing that was going to be said at Media Days that was going to make me feel better, said or heard, or that we heard, has made me feel better. I'm a big believer in order to be the man, you got to beat the man. Never underestimate the heart of a champion. All those cliche things you can say are cliche. Georgia proved they're real. We've seen it time and time again in sports, Chip, that they are real. What will make me feel better about Texas' chances of winning the SEC in 2025? how they performed leading up to the Georgia game, and quite frankly, beating Georgia in Athens. That will make me feel better.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, take it or leave it. Number 2. Your biggest concern, Eric, about Texas after attending SEC Media Days is the offensive line. Take it or leave it.
Yeah, it still is my biggest concern. I put you this way. If you'd asked me, Chip, do I feel better about the secondary after Media Days? That'd be yes. Do I feel better about, maybe, wide receiver? That'd be yes. But in terms of offensive line, I didn't hear enough to make me, and it's again, nothing that I was going to hear would have made me feel better about the O-line because it's such a cohesion position. I just got to see how this group comes together. What will make me feel better is kind of seeing some things in fall camp and then hearing it from Steve Sarkisian and company that those things are coming together, not necessarily at Media Day. So yes, that is still my biggest concern, Chip.
Yeah, and there are good things that we're hearing about the offensive line. Trevor Gooseby, I think they are as excited about him as anyone. There are those who think he could be in a contract year with a good enough season. He's out after this season. So Brandon Baker, there are good things there. And Andre Kojo, but still on a team that's loaded and the margins are thin, I would say that I'm going to take this just because we have to see it. And especially you're playing Ohio State in week 1. They have a new defensive coordinator, so it's hard to prepare. All right, take it or leave it. Number 3, Eric.
To bring us home, take it or leave it. Number 3, not including Texas, the team at SEC Media Days that impressed you the most was Georgia. Take it or leave it, Chip.
You know what? I'm impressed with Georgia, but the team that might have impressed me most was Florida. Because Eric put together a story on DJ Lagway that everyone needs to go over to Horns247 and read. This kid's got swag. I've been saying it, for a while. 6-1 as a true freshman. Like, he's played more than Arch Manning. And Arch Manning was the number 1 quarterback in the country in 2023, and Lagway was the number 1 quarterback recruit in 2024. And yet Lagway has more starts. He went 6-1 as a starter. And the one he lost, he was leading in against Georgia before he went out with an injury, and then Florida lost that game. So Florida is that team, to me, that if everyone's kind of thinking it's Texas, Georgia, Alabama, I'm going to put Florida in as the 4th team there, who could win the conference. I don't know about you, and I'm going off the rails here, Eric. I was not sold on LSU. I thought Brian Kelly came off as disconnected. And then we saw that documentary, Any Given Saturday, that's coming out on Netflix about the SEC's season last year. It felt to me like Brian Kelly was constantly fighting to get his team's attention. So, I'm going to leave this. I'm going to say Florida, Eric. And that's your state. You're the Chamber of Commerce. What say you?
I laughed when you said Florida because that was going to be my answer. And quite frankly, I've always been a big Billy Napier guy. Maybe, again, that goes back to my time covering Group of Fives. I covered him when he was at Louisiana Lafayette, or as they prefer, just Louisiana. I was curious if the Florida job was a little much for him, but I feel better about that. What I feel great about, Chip, is DJ Lagway. Folks, for those of you, and I don't know if, I'm sure someone will have recorded DJ Lagway's scrum and has up there on YouTube. Go watch it and go read my article, please. That'd be nice. But
yes,
Chip, the kid, he has it. Composed, charming, just like Arch. Knows how to answer the questions, knows how to give media a little something without giving too much. Dripping with confidence. The only athlete that I've ever encountered working professionally with that type of aura that I can compare it to is Cam Newton, Chip. Someone who is 6'5", 6'6", 250 pounds and knows he can do anything on a football field with his God-given ability. I'm not comparing him to Cam Newton. Even though
Right, because
DJ
Lagway
Lagway
is what, 6'2",
6'2", 6'3",
6'3", 240?
even though Lagway said the guy that he idolized growing up was Cam Newton, I'm not comparing him to Cam. I'm just saying that aura, Chip.
That
Chip,
confidence. Yeah.
how many times have you told me about it? When I asked you about the 2005 Texas team, and you said VY, the talent was there, but just the aura, right?
Aura. Transformed a team, a coach, and a program with his aura.
So I'm not saying DJ Lagway is going to do all that, but just listen to me. If he's healthy, I think the trajectory is upward for him. So anyhow, the team that impressed me the most is Florida, and DJ Lagway was the player, quite frankly, who impressed me the most.
I feel better about Texas's chances at Ohio State than I do about Texas's chances at Florida. That's how much respect I have for Florida. And Georgia is Georgia. They've won 31 in a row at home. All right. Good stuff, Eric. Good stuff. And get over to horns247.com. We have got wall-to-wall coverage. Eric's written about 10 stories in the last 2 days, and I've got the Insider coming out tonight. It's going to come out early. You will have nuggets galore. So get over to horns247.com. Become an annual member so that you get VIP access to all the team sites on the preeminent 24/7 Sports Network. For Eric Henry, I'm Chip Brown. Next time, we'll be talking to you from Austin, Texas, but from Atlanta, Georgia at SEC Football Media Days. We are signing out. So stay safe and keep the faith.